What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Ballion, back with another episode of the Sports Pod. And today I'm going to talk about everything that has been going on with the Knicks, from their head coach firing to their head coach search to potentially bringing in Giannis Antetokounmpo or Kevin Durant. I'll get into all of it on the other side of the intro. Hit it.
DiVincenzo a three. Bang! Bang! Got the wall. He jumps. It's gone. He did it. He did it. Pete Alonso with the most memorable home run of his career.
All right, before I get into the episode, just a reminder, if you want official The Sports Pod stickers, just DM me on Instagram at @thesportspod_Ben, and I'll ship a couple out to you absolutely free of charge. And let me just say this, I wanted to make this episode last week. This was supposed to be a Knicks season recap episode. I just wanted to take 2 to 3 days to collect my thoughts and reflect on the season. But then, of course, I got sick. So here we are today. Tuesday, June 10th, 10 days after the season ended. But we're going to get this episode done. So first, just a couple general thoughts on this team. And I'm going to start with what this starting lineup did this season. This starting lineup, which was composed of Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, and Karl Anthony Towns, was supposed to be one of the more defensively sound units in the NBA. Of course, you have Wingstop and Mikal and OG, but then you also have a glue guy like Josh, who really brings the team together. He gets those back-breaking rebounds, always looking to run out in transition. They were awful defensively. They were one of the worst defensive starting fives in history for how much they played in terms of net rating, which is just absolutely terrible. And this is something I'm going to get into a little bit later in the episode. But when do we start looking at Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns as a unit, and a unit that might not be working? Because what they did this year offensively, yeah, it was pretty good. But once you get to the playoffs, that's not going to fly. Having two defensive liabilities is not okay. If you look at any recent champions, look at the Celtics. Jaylen Brown can hold his own on the defensive end, and so can Jason Tatum. If you look back the year before that to the Nuggets, Jamal Murray is fine on the defensive end. He's the second best scorer. It's not two defensive liabilities, because Jamal Murray is just good enough. Whereas Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, they're just turnstiles. You get nothing from them. There were multiple times throughout the playoffs where I saw Karl Anthony Towns got turned around. He can't defend the three. He can't move laterally. He doesn't get the rebounds he's supposed to get. What does he do? I was never the biggest proponent of Karl Anthony Towns. From the day they brought him in here, I said I didn't like the move. I said he was soft and he was going to tear down the culture that the Knicks had built of the defense and the grit and the grind. And I think that held true for the majority of this season. How many times did we talk about this team not having the same identity, that it was different? These Knicks were different than last year's Knicks. And that's okay, except that the Knicks were not good enough to win the NBA Finals this year. There's no excuse this year. You were completely healthy heading into the playoffs. You had no excuses to not go to the NBA Finals. The problem was you were built to beat the Boston Celtics. You weren't built to beat the Pacers. I think they would have been fine if they had played the Cavs in the second round. It's the Pacers that have proved to be a problem for the Knicks. Their athleticism, their hustle, the Knicks just can't match it. And the biggest thing that the Pacers were doing to dominate the Knicks, they would have four guys down low looking to grab rebounds, and their fifth player was running out in transition looking for those fast break points that they took advantage of so much in the playoffs. How many times were the Pacers just immediately out in transition? I mean, there were times when it was off a made basket. The Knicks defense was terrible. And the problem is there was no breaks. The Pacers play full 48 minutes. You've seen that throughout the whole playoffs. They've hit game winners in all 4 rounds. They've made incredible comebacks in all 4 rounds. They play until that last buzzer sounds. The Knicks, they don't have enough depth to hang with that. They don't have the personnel to play those 48 minutes as hard as they have to. Cam Payne and Deuce McBride and Landry Shamet and DeLon Wright give you a little bit of life off the bench, but they don't give you nearly enough to hang with the Pacers. The Pacers are just on another level. There are times where the Pacers will do a full line change. They'll substitute 5 players at once. The Knicks could only dream of subbing 3 players off at the same time. It's incredible. And then now let's get to it. I mean, one of the elephants in the room, the head coaching change that is inevitable. Tom Thibedeau was fired just a couple days after the season. It's 8 days ago right now. It happened last Monday when I'm recording this. I don't like the move. I talked about it on my Instagram. I recorded a short clip because I knew I had to get something out. But Tom Thibedeau brought the Knicks a culture. He came here and 4 out of the 5 seasons, he was the coach of this team. They were in the playoffs. They just made their first Eastern Conference Finals appearance in 25 years. They played defense. They played enough offense to give you good seasons. But at the end of the day, I don't know if the Knicks were going to win a championship under Tibbs. I don't know if it's a personnel thing. I don't know if it's a coaching thing. I just think it's a very bold decision to fire a coach that just brought you to the Eastern Conference Finals, has been so successful, one of the winningest head coaches in franchise history, and you're going to fire him because he can't adapt in the playoffs. That's a huge deal. But I feel like there's got to be someone that can get to him. There's got to be someone that can get in his head and just change his ways. I know he's so deep into his coaching career, but there's not that many solid options to be your next head coach. Jason Kidd seems like the guy they want, but the most recent reports are saying that the Mavs don't think he's going to leave. The Rockets already said they're not going to allow the Knicks to talk to Ime Udoka. So the other options that are free agents, the guys that are available to be signed, Johnny Bryant, Taylor Jenkins, Mike Malone. Those are the 3 big options. And I'm going to tell you, I don't love either of those options. Mike Malone is sort of similar to Tibbs in the way that he doesn't like to play his bench much. He airs his players out openly in public. I don't like those style coaches. Johnny Bryant is a little bit more interesting, but he coached under Tibbs. He was Tibbs' assistant. He learned that style of coaching. So that leads me to believe that he's going to bring that into his head coaching gig. The other problem I have with Bryant is that he's gotten a couple head coach interviews at this point. He just hasn't been able to clinch a job, which makes me think he might not be the guy. He might not be the dude as an NBA head coach. He interviewed with the Jazz last summer. He just interviewed with the Suns and didn't get the job. They favored Jordan Ott over him. So is Johnny Bryant the guy? Taylor Jenkins, I'm sort of iffy on. I don't have as decisive of a reasoning of why I don't want him. But if you're getting fired midway through the season while your team is a top 5 seed in the Western Conference this year, I think there's a problem. Here's a couple options that I like. I wouldn't mind a European coach. I don't have a name in mind, but that's Leon Rose's job. Somebody who coaches in overseas where they could bring that very fundamental, skill-based style of basketball to the Knicks. Pass, cut, get your rebounds, no travel, stuff like that. Cut out all the silly, stupid mistakes that the Knicks would make, because there were countless times where Karl Anthony Towns is making a stupid turnover or backing his guy down and letting the shot clock expire. So I think a European coach who would eliminate all that would be solid. Or Frank Vogel is a name that my dad and I tossed out where he got fired from the Lakers but that was his last job. But my dad seemed to think he was a really good head coach, and my dad doesn't miss on this stuff too often. I'm not going to lie. The other name he proposed was Steve Kerr, who has 1 year left on his contract in Golden State. So I don't know. They would have to trade for him, but then you could sign him to a 2 to 3 year contract after that and stuff like that. So I wouldn't mind Kerr. The reasoning would be he sees that Golden State's run is over. He wants to come to New York. Maybe he could pick up an extra ring or two before he ends his career. So I wouldn't mind Steve Kerr. All three of those options I would be okay with. Jay Wright was the guy I really wanted. He was just never going to come out of retirement. That's just something that absolutely wouldn't happen. And it's the way Josh Hart seemed. He might have been joking around, but he was like, hey, coach, stay retired. I don't want to play for you anymore anyway. But Jay Wright is that fundamental head coach. He always preaches the jump stop, the pump fake, pass, cut, always moving off the ball. I feel like Jay Wright would work with the Knicks. He just wouldn't come out of retirement. He said he's happily retired. You can't blame him for that. All right, now let's move into some of the big name targets that the Knicks are looking to acquire this offseason. And let me say this, I don't really believe that the Knicks need that huge name trade target, that big fish. They have their superstars in Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. Kevin Durant is a cancer to every locker room he's been in except the Oklahoma City Thunder. Once he left them for the Warriors, everything has gone downhill for him. The Knicks don't need a guy the stature of Kevin Durant on this team. I think they are good enough. The problem might be the fit, the roster composition, but that's not something Kevin Durant is going to change. And what are you even going to trade for him? Because the Suns already said they have zero interest in Karl-Anthony Towns. So are you going to trade Mikal Bridges in every first round pick you have until 2060? Because you're already out until 2031. So what are you giving up? You're going to have to get a third team involved, but you're also going to have to make the money match up, which means OG Anunoby is going to be the guy on the chopping block, and I am not willing to part ways with OG Anunoby for Kevin Durant at this stage in his career at all. OG Anunoby is just too much of a difference maker for an aging Kevin Durant. Yeah, KD's going to score the ball, but what does he give you on the defensive side? What does he give you as a leader? Because at this point, he has to be a mentor for the young guys on this roster. And the Knicks do have a fair amount of young guys. And with the new head coach that they will have, he might be willing to play the young guys more, which could only benefit the Knicks because that could be production that you're getting out of players with small contracts. Then the last thing I want to say about the coach, I forgot to say this before, is that they're kind of tied behind. They have their hands tied behind their back with the Rick Brunson situation. Brunson is obviously the father of Jalen Brunson. He was one of Tom Thibedeau's leading assistants. What is the new head coach going to do with Rick Brunson? Because the best way to handle a new head coach is to clear the assistants, clear your staff, bring in all of the new head coaches, guys. This way it's a fresh start. But you can't really fire Rick Brunson because that's going to upset Jalen Brunson. And now you have a chain reaction of unfortunate events. I really do feel like the Knicks are one move away from disaster this summer. And we're probably going to get good hoops for next year. But I'm not promising anything after that. I feel like the Knicks have a year, maybe 2 years left in this run before it might be time to start thinking about tearing this roster down. So next year is really going to be the last stand for the Knicks. I think last year was the best shot they had at winning the NBA Finals. The injuries were just too much of a problem, and I'm not blaming them. They were a corpse of what they were. They were a hospital team, so you can't blame them for not winning last year, but I feel like that's going to be the best chance they have at winning the NBA Finals, which is unfortunate, but it might be true when everything is all said and done. All right, now getting back to KD, I just don't like the idea of trading for him at all. I just want to keep him out of New York as much as possible, unless he goes back to Brooklyn, because I got a front row seat to see the torture of Brooklyn Nets fans, of the net fan base that had such high expectations, and Kevin Durant came to their franchise. He gave them a good couple of years. They went to the second round once. But other than that, it was just nonsense. It was constantly in the headlines. It's not the right move. The Knicks don't need that guy. They need the other players, the role players, the glue guys. That's who the Knicks have to be scoping out, scouting this offseason, the guys that are going to fill in the gaps. Giannis is a little bit more enticing to me, but I still don't think they need a player like that. They don't need that top of the line guy unless they're going to move away from Karl Anthony Towns because they think that he and Jalen Brunson won't work together. And if that's the case, I'm starting to think this is a little bit of a Jalen Brunson problem, because in that case, this would be the second superstar that Jalen Brunson doesn't work with. Previously, it was Luka Doncic in Dallas. Jason Kidd was also the head coach, I believe, of that team. So he and Brunson already have history. If Kidd is to become the next head coach, I think Brunson respects Jason Kidd a lot. I think that was a topic on the Roommate Show one time, which is where I'm getting that from. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, he doesn't have the three-point shot. If the Knicks are going to go to and win a title, the Knicks are going to need a big who can shoot. The reason they brought in Karl Anthony Towns was to space the floor. And Giannis Antetokounmpo will not do that. Kevin Durant will. I still don't like KD at all. I don't even love Cat. You just needed that big that would space the floor. Mitchell Robinson could not be your starting center if you had no floor spacing. Like Julius Randle was your power forward, and he didn't space the floor very much either. He was a guy that wanted to work in the post, work in the mid-range, where Cat, as the power forward as it was for the final couple games of the season, he spread the floor while Mitch was still down low. You can have one guy in the post. You just can't have multiple out of a starting lineup. But what I was saying with Jalen Brunson, he is a finished product. He is not changing. His game is his game. He is not going to incorporate the passing more. He's not going to incorporate defense. That's because I don't think he can. I don't think he has the ability to be a top defender, to be competing for an all-NBA defensive team. I'm not even asking that. Just be serviceable. Don't be a turnstile on the defensive side of the ball, and we'll take it. But on the offensive side, which is really where Karl Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson have to mesh well, Jalen is just too ball dominant. And I think we got a glimpse of that in the postseason, where the offense was much more fluent and it flowed a lot better when Brunson was off the court and Karl Anthony Towns was running the show with a bunch of players off the bench. So the Knicks might have to think about splitting up Brunson and Cat and maybe staggering their minutes more next year. But that's for the new head coach to decide. I don't like the idea of bringing in either of the two big name trade targets that people have talked about for the Knicks this season in Giannis Antetokounmpo or Kevin Durant. KD is going to be a cancer to the locker room. And Giannis, I just don't like his style of play for the Knicks. I don't think it's going to fit well, because then what's your starting five? Again, who are you trading? You have to give to get. I wonder if the Bucks would take Cat for Giannis. I doubt it would be straight up, but you got to make the money match up in that spot. Maybe you give up Cat and Josh Hart, Cat and Deuce McBride, Mitchell Robinson maybe. You can't give up Mitch in a trade that also involves Cat, because then you completely deplete your front court depth, especially since it seems like Precious Achiuwa is not coming back. Hey, it might be time for Ariel Hukporti to step up. We never know. It's going to be the young guys. I feel like there's going to be a focus on the young players next year to at least develop them in the regular season with this new head coach. And I'm going to be honest, I have no sense of direction of where the Knicks are going. It seems like they are really lost right now. They wanted to fire Tom Thibedeau. It seems like it was an overreaction to me, and now they don't know what they're going to do. Like I said, the Knicks are one or two moves away from absolute disaster striking next year. And this is the absolute opposite of what they had to do. Firing Thibedeau was a complete overreaction that was unnecessary. I don't know why Leon Rose and James Dolan felt the need to do it. I bet it was James Dolan. That seems like an owner's decision. They've got to put it out that Leon Rose did it, but I do feel like James Dolan had his hands on this because Leon Rose, and I trust Leon Rose, so whoever he hires, I'm going to trust that they're going to continue to further the success of the Knicks. But this move seemed like a complete overreaction to me, especially since it was just 2 to 3 days after the season ended. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. If you enjoyed, please consider liking, subscribing, following, commenting, share it with a friend. I really appreciate all of it. Also, make sure you leave me a voicemail at 848-305-8073 with your sports questions and takes. I'll be sure to react to all of them in the next episode. And most importantly, keep it locked with the Sports Pod.